remember a very long time ago when I was in 7th grade, I had a teacher, I think all of us have had some teacher like this at one point in our life that was a little bit cranky, right? So I remember I was doing a math problem that was on the board, I was writing it, and this teacher came over to me and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm working on the math problem." She said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I thought that you wanted us to write the problem out and try and solve it." And she said, "That's your problem. You know what your problem is? Your problem is you're trying to think. Some people aren't smart enough to think. They should just obey. You're one of those people." So it's a little tough for a 7th grader, right? Now, thanks be to God, I have to say that my parents were always very affectionate and very positive, so her words just sort of bounced off of me. I just was kind of angry at her because I thought she was a little arrogant, and I was certainly too stubborn to care what she said. But nevertheless, there's a point that I want to make in this little story. The world, people, different groups, even ideas, try and tell us who we are. It happens very often in our lives. All of you know this. There are people who try and give us a false identity. Perhaps your boss, right? You try really hard, you work very diligently, you do something wrong, and your boss says you're an idiot. They're trying to give you an identity that is not who you really are, a false identity. Sometimes parents do this with very strong words. Sometimes couples do this to each other by not really celebrating the other person. There are many people and experiences in our life that try and give us a false identity. They try and tell us who we are, which is not really who we are. There's something like that happening in the gospel today of the Mass. We hear in the scriptures today that Jesus confronts, or a woman comes to Jesus, and here this is a Canaanite woman. Perhaps those words just sort of pass over us and we don't really think about them. But society and the culture in the time of Jesus gave this woman an identity. She is a Canaanite woman. And with that came a whole list of other identities that she was supposed to accept. You're not worthy, you're less than the Jews, you're not intelligent, you're dirty, you're unclean, etc., etc., etc. Society at that time tried to place on this woman an identity that was false. Something that she really wasn't, but that they believed her to be. Now, we hear this conversation that Jesus has with this Canaanite woman, and when we hear this, it sounds pretty tough. The Lord is sort of lacking compassion, it would seem, when he has this conversation with this woman. But part of what's happening here in this conversation is Jesus knows what culture, what society has said about her as a Canaanite, that she's unclean, that she's not as important, that she's less good, etc., etc. When Jesus enters in this conversation, he is allowing this woman to throw off the shackles, to throw off this false identity, in order to see who she really is. It's not good to give food to the dogs. And the woman retorts, even the dogs have the possibility of receiving the food. She believed herself worthy to receive the miracle. She believed herself worthy to receive help from Jesus, even though society said she wasn't. And in the end, the Lord performed this miracle, proclaiming to all the people around, what you thought about her is not true. The identity that you imposed on her is not the identity that she really has. She is not just a Canaanite woman. Rather, she is beloved of God. She is a daughter of God the Father. And Jesus gives to this woman a new identity which is founded in his relationship of love with her. I think that message is really important for all of us, because many people try and give us a false identity. or an identity based on some external reality. Poor or rich, fat or skinny, unintelligent or smart, educated, a factory worker, a lawyer, right? All these identities which are really not the heart of who we are. But we very often accept negative images or negative identities of who we are, a false image of our person. Today when we come to the celebration of the Mass, the Lord wants to remind us who we really are. Not what your family or society or your boss or your enemies say you are. Who you really are. What is your true identity? Your true identity, of course, is found in your relationship with a loving God. God gives you your identity in connection with Him because you are formed from His love. You are blessed in His love, and you have become, by His love, the very sons and daughters of God. That is your true identity. Beloved of God, sons and daughters of the Most High. And so it's important for us, like this Canaanite woman, to reject the false images, to reject our dignity based on some external reality, and to see the truth of who we are as beloved sons and daughters of God our Father. And when we live our life out of that mystery, out of the beauty of who God has made us to be, everything changes. Because our life becomes one of joy. Our life becomes one of seeing who we really are, that God is pleased with us. And so we are able to act and live as His image in the world. And so, my brothers and sisters, today, as we come to celebrate this gift of the Holy Eucharist, we recall who God really says that we are. His very beloved and the very sons and daughters of God, the Almighty Father.